And welcome back to Trekyards Mission Briefing, your weekly dose of Trekyards first look discussion. And we're going back very, very far for this week's episode. Stuart, how far are we going?
We are going back to pre-motion picture days, but not quite as far as TOS.
Okay.
Let's build up to the motion picture, kind of post phase 2 idea, but pre-motion picture. When Ralph McQuarrie was a concept artist for the motion picture, and we're going to take a look at his concept enterprise.
So, the first picture. This is a very interesting ship. So this is so all the universe had at this point was Franz Joseph, I assume, the TOS ones, and the original Connie, and also that's really the only ship we see for the most part. So the design aesthetic was set at a certain period, and then obviously Andrew Probert and that team developed it, and we start to build up. But what was your first impression of this, or can you remember seeing this? I mean, was this a promoted thing? I mean, take me back to the time.
I never saw this early on. I don't recall it at all. I know I stumbled on it many years later, and I thought it was interesting, but I really wasn't impressed with it. And then to find out that it was actually in a Star Trek movie, but we'll talk about that more later, is just a little bonus fact. So I really can't recall my first thoughts on it because I was quite young, and I don't know. I can just go from what I know now, and it's definitely Ralph McQuarrie. It looks very Star Destroyer-esque.
And those engines are definitely lightsabers. I mean, that basically Luke's lightsaber. No offense, but the end, like the way, it's mostly that. Yeah, I obviously was not born. I mean, this is before me. But I do remember seeing this in a concept because my dad's got lots of Star Trek books, as you know, we both do. And I do remember seeing this and thinking. I think my first thought was that it was a test ship, pre-TOS. I think that's what my first impression was, because it doesn't feel TOS. First of all, it definitely doesn't feel motion picture, but it feels like the Daedalus is the ball version, this is the saucer version. Like in my head, before Enterprise, that was how the two design ninjas worked, and then they both sort of melded into the what we think of, because obviously they took the saucer of this, which is very similar, and the engines of the Daedalus, whatever. I think that's how I first envisioned it, which isn't how it was designed by any way, by any stretch. But the design is so un-Star Trek, and just putting a saucer doesn't make it Star Trek.
Yeah, I agree. And I believe that Ralph McQuarrie was actually working for them on the motion picture, and then did get called away for another project, which might have been Empire Strikes Back, but don't quote me on that. And so these kind of fell by the wayside because it really didn't follow Gene's vision as far as how starship design should go.
And if I'm just trying to picture why he did such a design, because okay, so he's gone from the two nacelle struts and the secondary hull, and he's combined that entire secondary premise into a flat surface, which is interesting because it means you get a lot more surface area for a lot more quarters and shuttle bays and whatnot, which is interesting. And again, you only had one ship in the TOS universe to really base that off. But if you replaced the saucer with, you know, maybe the bird of prey head or something, boom, not Star Trek, like instantly. You wouldn't even second thought it. So I'm interested. I'd love to have his thought process as to why. I'd love that.
It's such a departure from the TOS Enterprise that I don't know. It just comes off feeling a little wrong for the Star Trek universe.
Yeah, which is a good bring to the next picture, which is what I remember seeing more. This picture I always remembered in magazines. I do like the shuttle bay. I'm going to be honest. I do like the idea of having that big aft, because that's a big shuttle bay.
Now, if you notice too, though, if on the last picture, that stuff below the shuttle bay is actually an engine. If you go back to the last picture, you will see that there are blue streaks coming off of there.
That looks awful.
So I don't know if those are supposed to be impulse engines or part of the warp system.
I would assume so, given their rectangles, and that's sort of what the TOS had as rectangles. It's so criminally basic. Like Gene was, well, not Gene, but Matt Jeffries was ahead of his time. This feels like you're bringing back angles just are... This feels like the Vogon constructor ship from the original 19 whatever Hitchhikers, where they had to build a really cheap model. Like, it's just angles because it's cheap.
Yeah.
And that's awful impulse. I mean, what's the design for them? Why is it under a shuttle bay? Because
rear of the ship, the best propulsion point. I don't know.
No, it's awful.
Ralph McQuarrie was a genius, but when it comes to Star Trek, I think he's stepped out of his world a little bit.
He didn't get it.
Yes,
I think.
Much like some other people that we know in about the year 2009.
But I do like Shuttle Bay, and I.
Well, let's move on to the next picture, shall we?
Oh, this is cool.
This is kind of a fleshed out version of that drawing a little bit.
Yeah. There's not much to go on, is there?
No.
Although, I got to straight right out the front. If you look at the top picture, take out the saucer, and that is the Intrepid class from Enterprise.
Yes.
Which I like a lot.
Well, they probably did that as an
yeah.
homage kind of thing to this design, so that's very cool. Although the engines look backwards to me. They should be like the shorter end at the front. And
would you have liked it more if they put the saucer on the other side and it was going the opposite way, kind of reverse your expectation sort of way?
No,
I
don't think so. Because then the Shuttle Bay definitely wouldn't work.
Well, it works on a Dreadnought sometimes.
Yeah. Next picture.
Another sketch.
This shows kind of hull detailing anyway.
Yeah.
But that's very Star Destroyer-esque looking texturing.
It's so in the box. It's so let's just throw shapes together. Whereas Matt Jeffries was elegant and sophisticated. I don't know. It just doesn't work. It's difficult because I know he's such a legendary designer and this is we've seen for so long. But when you do this show, you really have to dissect it and really look at it. Look at it. No, it doesn't work.
Yeah, there's just... And it's not just based on what we know has happened since then, as far as Starship design goes. Comparing this to the TOS Enterprise, it's not a next evolution step.
Okay, so theorize for a second. If you made that neck one solid piece going into the back, kind of like the Intrepid, so much thicker. If you reverse the nacelles, maybe slightly longer, could you see this being a carrier? So the entire secondary hull is a shuttle bay.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. That would be a kind of cool design, actually.
Yeah, and if you re-TOS the nacelles and re-TOS motion picture, motion picture would actually work better with the angles. To be fair, the more rectangle that might work. It wouldn't look great, but I think you could argue they wanted a full carrier, and that was the most efficient way of doing it, possibly.
I'd be down with that.
Yeah. Okay, and take out the impulse engine. It's awful. That'd have to be in the neck. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. But the next picture, I'm assuming, is a super early sketch of it.
I would think so, yeah. Which kept more of the proportions of the TOS Enterprise, kind of like longer struts, more straight up and down.
And I think the impulse engines are now either side. Well, I hope they are either side of the shuttle doors, and I like that more integrated rather than the bottom bit.
And plus, the engines are the longer end is like trailing off at the back, which looks a lot better just aesthetically. So
yeah.
But yeah, let's move on to the next one. This
it's from TNG.
Yes, this is the ship graveyard. They actually have a little version of the ship in the bottom, right there.
They were good fans. I mean, these guys were good. They just had so many fun things. It's nice to see the Fauna Excelsior as well. I was
just going to say that, kind of not in regards to anything we're talking about right now, but it's very cool looking to see that.
So does this imply? I don't think you can possibly say it means it's canon, because this is Klingon there, and there's so many different things, so I'm sure it's just an alien race, which I'm sure I can get behind. Although if you look, the saucer looks bigger to me, looks wider, and the nacelles are pointing back and much longer.
Yeah, it's been reproportioned and made to look more TOS, for sure. But it could just be a civilian craft, too. It doesn't have to be Starfleet.
I'd go behind that.
Yeah. And if you go to the next picture, you get a close-up of it.
Right.
Ish. And I don't know, is that a bridge module on the top, or is that like a ship flying in front of it? Like
it's got to be a bridge. They're not going to do a secondary detail within the... I don't think they would build that as part of the model shot. So I think that must be a bridge module, which is strange. And there's also no nacelle tips. I mean, they probably just built it out of cardboard. I mean, it's probably just most basic or wood or something. So, but it's interesting details, or lack of.
So this isn't the movie appearance that I was talking about, though.
No.
This is the TNG appearance, so it has been in Star Trek a few times, and
yes, the canonical TNG appearance in some respect, yeah. But the next picture, this is where we start to look at a fan redesign, same basic shape but done in a different way. It's by Tony Cardona.
Cardona, yeah.
There you go. Based on Ralph McQuarrie design for Planet Titans, yeah, the original concepts.
Yeah.
So this, you can't really tell the design as much. I think we might have to skip past this one because you can't really see much from it. It looks very normal Star Trek. Should we just go straight to the next one?
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
Again, the next one is a proportioned shuttle bay. And impulse engines, yep, in the TMP version, I like it. Nice looking shuttle bay, actually.
Mm-hmm. It does have like similar to the impulse engines on the original drawing, but it's like blue. It's more like an observation deck or some kind of.
Yep. That's nice.
I don't know what it could be. I mean, it's interesting. And even along the trailing edge there onto the left of the shuttle bay doors, there seems to be like thrusters of some sort. Some circular. I don't know what those would be.
That makes sense, yeah. But if you go to the next picture, we really get to see the design in action. What do you think?
I actually like this very much. I don't think it should have been an Enterprise, but I mean, as far as a not Starfleet but a Federation luxury liner, let's say. Nothing built for military or exploration. It's just purely a pleasure craft, like a cruise ship. Get your mind out of the gutter. I saw your face. It definitely works for that as far as I'm concerned.
I was thinking it doesn't work. You said that? Yeah. I can see that completely. Yeah, the elegance, the sort of odd design, the simple design. Yeah, I agree completely. That's a great way around it.
The only thing I would probably do different is make the engines a little longer. I don't mind that stubby look, but just to have them a little longer at the back, I think might look a little better.
Yeah. I mean, there's not much to say. I think I like the details. It's a decent looking design. It's at the absolute edge of Star Trek because it doesn't. It's one of those weird ones. Like, just because you put the basic elements together doesn't necessarily mean it works.
Yeah,
and it's one of those few ones that just like.
But then again, this took Ralph McQuarrie's very non-Star Trek drawing and made it something Star Trek. And that would work in universe.
Yes, in universe. I agree. Absolutely. Nice one. The next picture is a close-up. Nice looking deflector. I suppose. Wait, no. It's bottom 2 torpedo launchers, 4 glowing things, and it said at the back in my observation deck, and then you got 2 blue things either side, or just pretty lights. I mean, whatever. It looks good.
Yeah, they should serve some kind of purpose. You would think, it's hard to clean that from this. I mean, you'd think if they're observation windows, they wouldn't be going blue like that.
Well, the other windows on the side of the ship are also blue, so...
I know, but they're a lot smaller, too. Sure. With the bigger windows, you would think...
That could be 10 forward, but instead it's like 12 forward or 16 forward.
There you go.
There you go. I think it works. I think that actually looks pretty nice. It's a nice reflector setup.
Yep. And go on to the next one. It's another shot of the same ship, and you get to see the top. This is very... I actually like this. I mean... When you see the registry number and I'm happy with this. I think it's cool.
Yeah, it's because the secondary hull feels more natural now. It's just now got wings. If that makes sense, it's now very much the formula, but rather than being Enterprise C or Excelsior pylons, are just extended into wings. So yeah, this angle works better for me. I could see this possible. Yeah. And the next one is an aft shot. You get, wow, those impulse engines are tiny, first of all. And definitely thrusters or secondary impulse engines either side. And very distinct landing zones, shuttle bay landing zones at the top with the 1, 2, and 3 sign with doors, which are interesting. And an impulse crystal maybe at the back of the neck, maybe? I don't know.
Looks like it's been worked in, yeah, absolutely.
The source is very, very low detail, though. I know this isn't textured, but it's just like nothing there.
Yeah.
Very simplistic.
Yeah, but then again, I think this is a work in progress, so I'm not sure if this is the final version.
No, yeah, it's not textured yet. Cool.
And let's go into the next one. This is interesting. This kind of takes the idea, but uses the engines that we don't know all too well from the
I said earlier, it might work as a refit.
I like the dual deflector and the 4 photon torpedo launchers. That's really kind of cool.
Yeah, I do too. I think if that had been straight back flat as like a diamond without the wings, that could have been a really interesting design. It's
Yeah,
like a
I
new
can see
version of
that.
secondary hull.
You know what this makes me think of, though?
Pudding.
Yes. I'm gonna go get some.
No, what really? What?
It makes me think of a FASA design.
Well, probably, yeah.
It's something that looks like FASA would have came up with back in the day.
Yes.
And I kind of like it, to be honest.
I do more. Well, if you can see the neck is stretching out like I recommended previously, so that I immediately like it more.
Mm-hmm.
It's closer, but yeah.
It's definitely something that would work in universe for sure.
Yes, and again, cruise liner, but this would be this because of to get such a refit. I feel it's more of a.
I think this is more like a carrier version, like you said, because it's heavily armed with those 4 torpedoes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And we can't see the back, so you could be carrier based. I mean, that would be awesome.
Yeah. It would make sense. So the next picture is the one from you tell Stuart, you were hinting at earlier.
Star Trek 3. When they come home, you can see the little Ralph McQuarrie back in the corner there. You can see the engines, and it's a nice little nod to the what might have been. And I didn't know this for the longest time, and now every time I watch this scene, I look for it. So it's a cool little Easter egg to have in there.
And that shows they're fans of fans, like they're a fanatic of being a fan, because obviously they want to fill the space dock with a little bit of stuff, but rather than inventing something brand new, they thought, oh, let's actually make it fuller by adding new stuff, and let's use a thing from previous sketch that we all know fans might. Because imagine if those sketches had been lost to history, then it would be an Easter egg no one knows. But because Star Trek fans like the background, they like the history, it resonates, like it becomes a thing, you know. So I'm really appreciative of that.
Maybe this was the lost prototype. What could have been the refit. Instead of refitting the Constitution classes, they were going to just simply build this.
Yeah.
And it just didn't work out. So it's been mothballed. It's put back there. It's in the museum kind of thing. Who knows?
And it is probably the same model they used for TNG, I'm assuming, because of how the nacelles are, and there's the fact there's no nacelle strap, bastards. I'm assuming it's probably the same physical model. They just had in a room somewhere, because it wouldn't have been too long distant, not that many years, maybe, and you wouldn't necessarily just throw it away, would you? If it was in this, I mean, this is a big set, the physical Starbase set, so it's a decent sized physical model.
It would have been at least a decade, but yeah, it's not too bad as far as time goes.
Yeah, well, they might have kept it for.
Oh, I'm sure they did. I'm sure it's still around somewhere. Yeah. Wonder if it's sold at the 40 Years of Star Trek Christie's auction. Who knows? I mean, somebody knows. Obviously, I keep saying who knows. Somebody knows.
But
we don't.
Go to the next picture, Stuart.
Next picture is done by Christopher Dahl, who I actually met at Wonderfest this year. Hung out with him before I even knew this was his picture. I had this picture on my computer for a while. Met him at the Wonderfest, hung out with him, got to know him. Great guy. Came home about 2-3 months later, saw this again, and holy shit, that was done by Chris Dahl. I know him now. It's a very, very, very cool take on the McQuarrie design. As far as I'm concerned, this is something I would have liked to see on screen, to be honest. I'm not just saying that because I know the guy. I think it's cool.
I think it's cool too. It screams Enterprise, the Ambassador class that Andrew Probert did. The color scheme, the angle, and the highlighting, and the engines especially. Like, he's clearly taken that as inspiration of it's very similar. But I do agree completely. This is what a redesign, because I can't tell if it's actually got wings. It looks like it doesn't. It looks like it just has pylons and then just a different bottom, and that fixes it so much.
Another thing I like too is the incorporation of like the TOS Dreadnought or the Federation class ship 3 sensor dishes. I think that looks really neat.
Much better than the Dreadnought, I'm just saying.
Yes. Much better. The thing on the side, though, I don't know if it's a docking port, but if it is, it's way out of scale. It's way too big. I don't know what that circular bit is. But
maybe merry-go-round.
Yes. No, I actually like this. This is something that I would vote for to see on screen. I think it'd be awesome.
It's interesting because it's got, like I say, Dreadnought sensor. It's got moving towards motion picture torpedoes. It's got clearly motion picture saucer, but it's got sort of Enterprise C Ambassador engines and Excelsior / Enterprise C original cannon struts. So it's a very interesting combination of designs.
I wouldn't say the saucer's movie or refit. I'd say it's more Ambassador. I think this is much
well,
closer to Ambassador class.
Yes, I mean, I don't want to push it that far because the nacelles are so well. Okay, no, yeah.
The nacelles definitely have that Ambassador feel with the ribbing on the back.
It might be Ambassador era, which is an odd one. I don't know. I think this feels like if someone said, right, you're not a fan of the show, here are some Star Trek designs, make a cartoon version for a family-friendly cartoon, and therefore the proportions are all a bit odd because the neck is huge, the struts are huge, like everything is slightly out of proportion and it works in a cool shape, but it's not. It feels like more of a cartoon version, which I actually get. I like it. It works in that way for me. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought the proportions were kind of odd when I first saw it too, but they grow on you after you look at it for a while.
Yeah.
You can actually see it being practical that way. I don't know. That's me personally.
On to the next picture is one of the original other sketches of the Ralph McQuarrie ship going to some sort of dry dock. And it looks like a hang glider with a very big neck and just...
It looks like the toy you buy for your kid that he just throws, right? Yeah, it's interesting that this could have been what we saw on screen, more of a enclosed dry dock area.
Well, I believe this is meant to be the asteroid one because it looks like rocks on the outside. It's very Star Wars actually. If you look at the way the detailing is very much interior Death Star, very much so. Yeah.
And the proportions are off compared to the first picture we saw.
It's very much
struts. Struts are much bigger and.
For an earlier picture, I would assume.
Maybe the center part is much narrowed down, like the secondary hull. So this proportionate is kind of like the last one we saw, the Crystal one, and I don't know if he probably used this one as an inspiration for that. I would assume so by the proportions. But.
Possibly. And we're on to the first picture as the last picture. A very interesting ship. It's a sort of what could have been, and very vaguely in universe, but at the same time so different. So it's an interesting mission briefing for sure.
Absolutely. And just while we're back on it real quick, if you notice, you can see the impulse engine thingy glowing blue here, because if you might have missed it the first time. I don't know. I'm glad they didn't go this way, but I'm glad this exists in history because it's an interesting discussion, talking piece. You get to see what could have been, and I love that. Absolutely.
It's interesting to see how other designers, especially of that era, when you say design the next Enterprise, where do they take it? And some get it right, some get it less right, and it's interesting to see the differences. But yeah, that is it for this week's mission briefing. Let us know what you think of this design. Let us know if you remember seeing it for the very first time. Where and when? Was it in a magazine? Was it in a book? And has your opinion changed over the years? Do you think this could have been the next Enterprise? I don't know. But let us know in the comments below. And yeah, have a great week. See you next time for another Trekyards. This is, as always, Commander Kongs.
And Captain Foley.
See you next time.
And think about what might have been.